and we're gonna get started. Okay, is there anybody from the public here to make a comment? Nope, don't see anybody. Cool. All right, moving right along to attendance. Ram?
Present.
Bob is not here today. Joe?
Here.
Patrick?
Here.
Jason?
Here.
Scott?
Here.
Lauren?
Here.
Rose is not available. Jan?
Here.
Fred?
Here.
Dwani? Mara? Here. Susan?
Present.
Brian?
Here.
And Grace. Okay, we have a quorum. Great. So I want to sort of hop around the agenda today just because it's pretty full and I want to make sure that we have time to discuss this. So updates A and B about the May and June meetings. So we need to schedule the May meeting, which would have been May 5th, I think, or May 3rd. It coincides with the SLDS Best Practices Conference, and as grant recipients, we have to participate in that. And so we're proposing to move that meeting to May 10th. And somebody from DISC will be joining us to give an update on the security work and do a presentation on architecture recommendations. So is there anybody for whom the 10th does not work? If you want to speak up or put it in the chat. Lauren, your hand is raised.
Yeah, we have our May Institutional Research Conference being held at UConn. We're hosting it, so I know I can't be there that day.
Okay, thanks for letting me know.
Sure.
Anybody else? Okay, well, we'll be sharing the materials out with everybody, and there will be minutes for that meeting, so thank you for that. And then we need to move the June meeting as well. We're proposing to reschedule that to June 14th. This would be a hybrid meeting for the formal data governing board meeting. So it'd be in person at OPM and on Teams. We'll probably start at 9 a.m. just because it would be in person. And then this would be followed by an in-person working session that'll be facilitated by DISC to go over the architecture recommendations that will be presented at the May meeting, and then work to identify like what the next steps should be for P20 win. So we really want to make sure that everybody can participate in this working session, but we also need it to be in person just so that we can make sure that we have a productive meeting. So is there anybody that cannot do June 14th? Cool, that's awesome. I will send updated calendar invites after this meeting, plus an additional invite for the working session, and then we'll be sending more details as we go right along. Cool, that's great. Thank you guys, that was super easy. The next item is policies and processes. So the item is to vote to approve the amended data security policy. So is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Cool. So it's a motion made by Ram, seconded by Joe. So, this item was tabled at the March meeting. The language included in the policy and process documents reflects the recommendations that came from the working group and the language that came from the working group participants. I know that there were concerns from CSU that the language had not been reviewed, but we've confirmed since then that it has been, and it has been approved. So no other changes have been made to this policy. Is there any other discussion on this? Okay, seeing none, let's do a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Wonderful. Motion passes. Thank you so much for all of your help making this happen. I just make a note of it. Okay. Cool. So then the next item are grant updates. So for the 2019 SLDS grant, we got a no-cost extension. So we'll be extending the work to February of next year. So this will allow us to continue working on data dictionaries, expanding to include new agencies, and completing a couple of data requests that were identified in the grant. So we can move right along, keep on doing that work. The 2023 SLDS grant, so that was the focus of that is to create a research collaborative and leverage external researchers to fulfill like established data requests. It's in the planning stages. We just had a kickoff for it with the U.S. Department of Ed on Wednesday. So we will have more updates and probably outcome maps to share with you in the coming months. Any questions or comments on the SLDS grants? Okay. So then the next grant is the Workforce Data Quality Initiative grant. So there are two components to this. I'm going to let Coral talk about the data request first.
So the data request, I think we've talked about this a little bit in the past. So it's education and workforce pathways. So we're going to be looking at individuals that have participated in any of the DOL workforce training programs, as well as those that have gone on to enroll in post-secondary within Connecticut. And then looking at career and technical education from CTEX and adult education from SDE. And then also looking at how individuals might move between these programs throughout their career, and then if they find employment within Connecticut. And at this point, we're working with DOL to do the initial match of those workforce training programs.
Cool. Anybody have comments or questions about the status of that? Okay. The other part of the WDQI grant is the security work that we're doing with DISC. So we're plugging right along. We'll have updates at the May meeting for everybody. And then the next grant is the IES grant that was awarded to the Office of Higher Ed. I forgot to mention that the WDQI grant was awarded to Labor, but the IES grant is working on the Roberta Willis Scholarship Program. So, Coral.
So for this grant, we're working with also a researcher at the University of Massachusetts, Boston, and there's going to be two parts to the data request. So there's an initial descriptive analysis, and then there's also going to be a causal analysis looking at the impact of Roberta Willis for individuals that receive it against individuals as a comparison group of those that are similar but did not receive Roberta Willis aid. And so at this point, we're currently working with the new research analyst at the Office of Higher Education to do an initial exploratory analysis of the Office of Higher Education data. And then hopefully in the next month, we'll match that with the SDE student data as well as the Department of Labor for their wage data so that we can begin that descriptive analysis portion. We also were asked to submit a kind of paper to the Association of Public Policy Analysis and Management Conference this November. So we submitted to be part of a panel for financial aid where if we're accepted, we'll be presenting on those results of that initial descriptive analysis.
Cool. It's very exciting. Doing a lot of cool work. Which brings us to the data request section. So we have a lot going on right now. So the first thing on that section is a crossover use privacy enhancing technology pilot. So this is something that Ashley's been working on with Fred at DCF and Brian at CSSD. Ashley, if you want to give some details.
Sure. So crossover youth is defined as youth that touch both the judicial system and DCF. So we are looking to understand that population more, and to understand it, we need to kind of baseline as to what is that population in Connecticut. The last time there was a study done was back in about 2015, so it's been a while. So we are updating those numbers with this new sort of way of matching. It's called PET, or privacy enhancing technology. So it'll be using something called hashing to do the match. And we are doing this in conjunction with folks at Georgetown at their Massive Data Institute. And in conjunction with this as well, we are going to be doing a P20 win request, just so we can sort of get an understanding or a comparison of the two technologies and understand if a traditional match is similar to this other way of matching. We actually have the kickoff later this afternoon for this project with Georgetown and with some folks that will be helping on this project as well. Fred and Brian, if you want to say anything additional about this, please jump in.
I'll just say it's exciting to do this study again. I was kind of peripherally involved with the study back in the teens, and yeah, I forget exactly what year it was, but it's been a long time. And yeah, the trying to quantify the amount of overlap between the juvenile justice and the child welfare systems is but it's a pretty important question to ask, particularly when you think about the degree of disproportionality in both systems, and seeing how that plays out in terms of the overlap as well. So yeah, and then the exploring the use of hashing technology to check out whether or not that matching procedure actually is as good as what we've been using, but theoretically stronger and more secure. It is pretty cool. So yeah, I'm excited about it.
Absolutely. And you know, just as a kind of a side comment, you know, there's some hope that you know, we can maybe leverage some of these technologies, you know, maybe eventually outside of the scope of P20 Win, and more of a, you know, kind of day-to-day operational data sharing to kind of help out with you know, individual level kind of case management and service provision. So a lot of excitement.
Very cool. So we'll have more updates to bring to you in the next few meetings. The next item, I wrote post-secondary labor market indicators, but that is incorrect. It is post-secondary labor market outcomes. We have Sam from the Department of Education here, who's going to give us a presentation on Data Request 50, which was most recently completed and has had some great coverage in the media.
Hi, folks. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Great. Katie, I'm assuming I can share my screen to do some slides.
Go for it.
All right. Folks can see slides okay?
Yes.
Great. Hi, everyone. I'm Sam Kamen. I'm an associate education consultant at CSDE. But before that, I was an education researcher at UConn. So I've been on the periphery of P20 Win for a bit, including doing some work with Sean Doherty and other folks on the CTEXT, and also some internal stuff with Jan at CSDU way back as an intern a few years ago. Good to see you again, Jan. So I sort of picked this project up midway through, so I'm here on behalf of other folks, both at CSDE and some DOL folks that are in the room today. And just going to talk a little bit about this report that we've put together. So in general, this report's designed to sort of address one of CSD's goals of preparing each student for learning, life, and work beyond the classroom. And so it pulls together data from CSDE, including National Student Clearinghouse data, so post-secondary enrollment and graduation, with DOL data about earnings to try and better understand what's going on with students after they graduate in terms of earnings and how that relates to post-secondary education as well. So just quick data notes, and there's a lot more details here. I think all these links should be clickable. There's more detailed notes on the inclusion exclusion criteria, but this is Connecticut's high school graduates from 2007 to 2022 by district. And we have a wide variety of demographics that are collected while they're in high school, including race, gender, free and reduced price lunch, EL status, students with disability status, and other things like that. And then from NSC, we get matched college attendance and graduation. So we have a variety of different degree attainment and other credentials and things like that. And then annual earnings, which are adjusted to 2022 dollars, so there's no inflation effects that are present here. And industry of employment, which I should be clear, industry is not the same thing as job role, but that's how we've got it, and that's what we're reporting. So I'm just going to give a quick little run through of what the report looks like, and I'll put the link in the chat separately again when we're finished if folks want to go click through. But the way this is set up is we've got sort of two sections. We've got a sort of high level inferences section, which provides folks with a basic overview of some conclusions that we think you can draw from the data. The years are organized by graduating class, so they're separated out, they're not stacked together. And then years are organized by year after graduation. So there's no data that are in here for students that while they were in high school. This is only after they've graduated. So this first sort of spot here, we can see that students or graduates with college credentials are earning substantially more than those without college credentials beginning 5 to 6 years after high school graduation. So this blue line here represents those with a college credential, which can include associates, bachelor's, or higher degrees, as well as other non-degree credentials. And this jump here that we see after 5 to 6 years is because we treat college earning as a static status across the years. So students who earned a college credential 7 years after graduation are always part of this blue line. So these lower numbers here we're guessing is because those are students who are almost positively still in college and thus earning less during those years. And I should add too, these are for calculation reasons, these are means and not medians, but the numbers aren't that far off. We did a couple of spot checks. Other key inferences, we're looking at gender as well. We can see that for both college graduates and non-college graduates, we see that males are earning more than females regardless of those credentials. And this is a gap that's widening over time. So there's other, again, high-level inference things you can click on here, and you can change the data based on the year. The other thing you can do is you can highlight over a data point and see a couple of other pieces of information. I'll zoom in. You can see what year it was. This was the 9th year after graduation for this particular class. This is the female line because we're on the blue tooltip here, the number of graduates, and then average earnings. The number of graduates shifts pretty substantially from year to year because we're only using earnings data from Connecticut as students leave the state. Then we no longer are tracking those earnings for now. So we also have an interactive report, which is probably a little bit more exciting for our power users. You can split the same way that I was just showing you before for those high-level inferences. You can split both by line or by panel. So there's a variety of different things you can select here, including high school graduating class, district, and then again these split lines and split panels by. The split lines by creates two different lines. So for example, we can split by college credential earned. This is essentially the same thing as you're looking at that first inference. You can have a line for college credential and not college credential, or you can show or hide individual values. You can also split panels. So rather than just having one panel, you can do side by side. So we include industry of employment. Here's earnings, again, at class 2007 for agriculture, forestry, fishing and hunting, construction and information. And this is now just splitting by panel. So this is everybody all together in one big stack, but you can combine both as well. So we can see now we've got credential earned versus no credential earned. We'll see in all of these industries, or in these two industries here, we can see that credential earning is still out earning those without a credential. You'll notice some data points disappear because there's suppression applied here because this is a public report. If there aren't 20 or more students that are within this graduating class in this industry on this line, then you're not going to see a spot there. We can also filter by district. So the more filters you're doing at once, you end up with quite a bit more suppression, especially for our smaller districts and especially for things like industry of employment where things get smaller. We also provide a data table. And again, you can see some of the stuff here that you can see the numbers shift pretty substantially over time in and out of groups. The demographics and credential learning and things like that are static. But whether or not they show up in the data set or not is dependent on whether or not they were earning in the state of Connecticut during that year after graduation. And suppression rules apply here as well, which is why you're going to see some asterisks in some spots. So just a couple quick other data notes just to contextualize. This again is just from high school graduates who are working within Connecticut. So if there's earnings that are happening outside of the state for whatever reason, those aren't reported here. We're not including students who did not graduate from a Connecticut public school. We're not including anyone who's unemployed because we don't have any earnings to report for them. And we're obviously, again, not including graduates who are earning a salary in a different state. We define graduates similarly to how NSC does. So there could be a certificate, associate's degree, or bachelor's degree or higher. In that advanced filter I was showing before, you can also split those out as individual lines as well. So you can differentiate between each of those different graduation levels. And again, they're ever earned. As I said before, wages are means, not medians. And then the most demographics are recorded as ever in grades 9 through 12. So we were ever eligible for free reduced price lunch, ever an English learner, student with disability status, et cetera. And gender and race or whatever values were last reported. Those are things that can be dynamic over time based on registration in school. And again, there's far more notes for folks to review if folks want to. Again, that link should be live here. So we're looking forward to updating this annually. It is a match that happens, via P20 wins. So it is something that happens in a vacuum. So we'll plan on doing that again in March of next year. Other next steps we're considering, but obviously this is all dependent on a variety of things. Trying to include some out-of-state wages, adding college majors. This is dependent on NSC, adding some more specificity to credentials as well. And then shifting that ever status for college credentialing. So can we track a student when they earn that degree and what the earnings look like before and after that moment, so students can come in and out of that group to get a better understanding of what's happening at the moment they're earning that degree, and then immediately afterwards, as opposed to their sort of existence pre and post. That's what I got. I'd be happy to take questions if folks have them. Also more than happy to respond to emails or anything along those lines. Thanks, folks.
Thanks, Sam. That was great. Are there any questions, comments?
I'll
Okay.
just ask one thing, Sam.
Oh, please.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yep.
Did
Did
just
you say
stepped on
you were
someone else.
putting the
Mary.
link in the chat, Sam?
You got it. Yep. I'll share a link to the Ed site report, and that has a link to the data notes as well.
Sam, could you
Thanks for
talk
the
about
reminder.
two things from the next steps, I think,
Yeah.
the last end
Yeah.
of it. You talk about like what's involved in replicating on an annual basis. Like I know you planned ahead to be able to do that. So just talk about a little
Sure.
bit what you've done to be able to replicate it. And then the out-of-state wages, any just sort of thoughts on that? Obviously our ability to do that is kind of limited, but it's important for a small state. So.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk about them in backwards order if that's okay. So the out-of-state wages, there's existing relationships that exist between Connecticut and other states that probably other people on this call know more about than I do about sharing some of those data. So I know that that's been discussed as a possibility, especially again as a small state, because we have a lot of in and out. Would be really helpful to be able to see what's going on there. I have to defer or plan to get back to you to give you a little bit more specificity than that, but that's what I've got at the moment. In terms of annual updates, the match happens and will be re-happening on an annual basis. So it's a probabilistic matching algorithm that happens to put the students from CSDE together with the DOL based on a variety of different things. So those are things that are happening again at a single point. So that'll re-happen again in March. We'll redo the match. And then from there, it's relatively light lift on our end to pull in all of the CSDE and National Student Clearinghouse data to apply another year. So we track National Student Clearinghouse data. We get 7 years back. That also means that I should note this too. We don't have students who get a degree more than 7 years ago. We can't match to CSD there because that's a National Student Clearinghouse restriction. But we can keep track of the students into the past as long as they graduated within 7 years of high school. or got a degree within 7 years of high school graduation. So we can stack more years on top of that, and we'll just keep extending out into the future. As long as it's productive. At some point, I'm sure we'll pull some numbers off the tail end. Does that answer your question, Scott?
Yeah, that's helpful. Thanks.
Great.
Awesome. That was great. Are there any other comments or questions? All right, cool. Well, we look forward to continuing this work with you, Sam. It'll be great.
Thanks, Jess.
So the next request, there's not much of an update on this, but the Roca Young Mothers Program Evaluation is a program based here in Hartford that includes OEC, DCF, and Ashley, remind me.
SDE.
SDE. Well, okay, great. So we're just waiting for the data sharing agreement to be approved, and then we will start moving data for this match. Other reviews that are, or other requests that are in review. So from the Sentencing Commission, there is a request that's looking at mental health access for people who are leaving incarceration or on parole. That is in review. We're moving right along. Most agencies at this point have approved this, and so we'll be following up with DOC, CSSD, and DEMIS about this. And then, Ashley, if you want to give a quick update on the housing choice voucher request.
Sure. So that request is pretty near ready to be recirculated with the participating agencies. That includes OEC, CCEH, SDE, I believe that's it. Yeah. And we're piloting the data security plan with this request. So we're going through that. So it'll be the first time that we're kind of seeing the pilot of that and how it works. So once we finish reviewing their draft of that, again, it'll be recirculated with the agencies. I should say a little bit about what this data request is about. It is looking at how people who receive housing assistance in the New Haven area compared to those who don't receive assistance in very general terms. So it's looking to look at the outcomes, but also looking to help Elm City communities, the sort of housing authority down there, evaluate their program as well. So.
Cool. And we have a couple of other data requests that are in development that we will share at the May meeting, but we're trucking right along. Are there any comments or questions about the data requests? Okay. So in the updates section, we already addressed the May and June meetings. We have, oh, Mary.
Oh, I was wondering, are any of these data requests recurring, or is it only one time?
So as Sam stated, that request will happen on an annual basis. The other three, I believe, are just single, like one-time data requests.
Because I've been approached by Department of Health regarding fatality of overdose data, and I didn't know if that could be woven into the framework of our group. And
So,
that's why I don't know if that could be a tool for our group versus directly between us and Department of Health, but I thought I'd ask.
so they're not yet a part of P20 win. Scott, do you want to take this?
Keep going, and then I'll fill in whatever is missing.
So DPH is not yet a member of P20 win, though we have been in discussions with them. If the request would include data from both you and them, and that would be a P20 win request. So that is an opportunity.
So you would honor recurring reporting?
Yes. yeah, we have a number of data requests right now that are running on an annual basis.
Thank you.
Of course,
Just to add to it, that for Mary and Michael Garlama from Demas, who's not in the meeting today, he'd asked basically the same question, and so I think it's worth some follow up on it. That was a little while ago, and I think we haven't had sort of a discussion about it since. But say it's a reasonable question because the structure is the same. They're looking to match and de-identify records and pull together some data. Doesn't reveal personal identities.
Cool. So moving to the general updates. So we that annual report that we put together each year. So we will be sharing that with everybody after this meeting. Ashley took on the bulk of the annual report. So if you want to give a high level overview of what's in it, please.
Sure. So I think, and it's been a little bit since I looked at this now. There's a couple different sections, but we have to do an annual report to highlight at least what we're doing around the topic of equity. But we add a lot more into this annual report than just that. So the other big chunks of this report talk about the data requests that one we completed in the last year, but two that are also somewhere in the pipeline from this past year. So you'll see quite a number of different data requests that are broken down by learning agenda area. I know we have been having some conversations about updating this. So this is the learning agenda that we have used previously. So that is a big chunk of the annual report, and then just additional sort of changes that we've made to P20 Win in the past year. So any policies and processes that have been approved and implemented, any new agencies that have been added on, any sort of new structural things that we've incorporated. So we have like a dashboard for tracking where data requests are internally. So things like that are all incorporated in this annual report. It's a several page report. And like Katie said, she'll be circulating it. Feedback is welcome if you have any. And yeah, thanks for taking the time to look at it in advance.
Cool. So we'll be sending that out to everybody probably sometime next week. So yeah. And then to continue with Ashley talking, the last item on the agenda is about consent management. We've recently brought in a fellow, Philip, to help us with some of this work, but I'll let Ashley talk more about it.
Yeah, so just to introduce Philip, I believe he's on the call, or yes. He comes to us from the Department of Social Services as a fellow. Some of his previous work there was working on Medicaid costs and quality transparency. So he helped them get a dashboard up and running that highlights that topic. He also worked with them to go over informed consent and when informed consent is needed. So we have taken him on to help continue that project at a larger scale for, it looks like I'm frozen on my end. I hope I'm, okay, there we go. Informed consent on a larger scale for all data that is, potentially requested through P20 Win. So I am going to be helping Philip set up meetings with each of you guys to talk about what data you have and maybe any like privacy laws that are surrounding that data and laws that surround sharing that data, so that we can learn and document which data might need some consent and how it's used. Philip, I don't know if you want to just like give a quick hello.
Thanks, Ashley. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you all. First time I've really been on a P20 Win call. I I was invited by Scott a year ago when I was in DSA, but it's the first time sort of sat through the entire meeting. So happy to meet you all, and looking forward to the next couple of weeks, sort of engaging you on understanding your policies and practices around consent, the data you have, and how to sort of make providing informed consent more efficient and more equitable from the user end. So looking forward to those conversations. Thank you.
Thanks, Ashley. Thanks, Philip. Welcome. So then the next item is other business. Is there any other business that folks here would like to discuss that was not part of the agenda? Okay, well, this was one of our fastest meetings, I think. I'm happy to give 20-ish minutes back to all of you. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, you too.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Kate.
Great week.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.